The hypocrisy of MAGA is never surprising, but it's always disgusting. And my goodness, it's shameless. Today was no different. The only difference was that we got a little extra layer of tantrum from Carolyn Leavitt after her boss was kicked off all the networks he craves attention from, sending her into a meltdown, a full-on breakdown. Because Donald Trump was out there trying to score cheap political points, which he's losing more than ever, by invoking the deaths of Americans, people whose lives were taken simply because they were in the country without papers. Trump held a press conference, an event, a mumbled speech for what he called angel families. Not because Trump, as he'd claim, wants to protect women or Americans. No, it's because he's a bigot trying to scare people and push propaganda. And it didn't work. It drove Leavitt completely off the rails. But before we get to that moment, I want to start with someone who perfectly exposed the political lie Donald Trump was telling. That was Jasmine Crockett, right before this speech, in a moment I think is just perfect to bring to light.
Understand why and where my colleagues are going on everything else, and now they want to be the protectors of girls and women. I didn't hear them screaming this when Renee Good was killed in the middle of the street in Minneapolis. I didn't hear any protection for Renee Good, a U.S. citizen that was killed by the same people that the vast majority of you just voted to give more money to. I didn't hear the same thing. In fact, it was a lot of crickets, specifically including the women, as we were just lectured about what we need to do as women when it came down to the Epstein files. I heard crickets. In fact, we could not get any signatures onto that discharge petition, to the extent that we shut down the entire House, and there was no business that was conducted in this entire country on behalf of our constituents. But let me be clear, the Republicans are going to protect girls and women, because that's what this is all about. It's not about the report, because the amendment says it's about a report. Like, miss me on being protectors. Just say that this is what you believe, this is what you're doing. But don't come at us and tell us as women what we should be okay with, what we shouldn't be okay with, because it's just kind of like the same thing where I should be telling a lot of women on the other side of the aisle, I don't know how it is that you are not protecting women as they need protections over their own bodies to make their own decisions.
The gentleman to yield for a question.
I will yield for a question.
Well, thank you, Ms. Crockett, for those trenchant remarks. You know, our friend and colleague from New Jersey started by saying, what do most Americans think of as wrong? So he wants to ground people's approach to this bill on moral intuition. Well, what do you think the moral intuition of Americans is today about shooting Americans in the face for exercising their First Amendment rights, or stripping them of their lawful gun and then shooting them 10 times? You think the vast majority of Americans reject that?
Oh, I know they do.
You think that's why Donald Trump says he's going to de-escalate and they're trying to get out of Minneapolis because the whole country rejects the bloody, violent authoritarianism on display there?
Oh, absolutely.
Against women and girls and men and boys?
Donald Trump isn't trying to keep Americans safe or protect women or really protect anyone. Trump is protecting women? That's the biggest nonsense I've ever heard in my life. Yet that's the story they insist on, and that's exactly what they insisted on today, holding an event for families who lost a loved one to a crime committed by someone in the country without papers. And Trump wanted to frame it as an event about caring for these families. We love them. They're in our prayers. Donald Trump does not pray. And you might say, well, Jack, maybe that's a noble thing. Are you serious? I know you're not saying that. But if you truly believe Trump took any of it seriously, and that it wasn't just a gimmick, listen to what he actually talked about during the speech.
And I had to go through, and I still do, fake stories, fake polls. I mean, I had polls for the election that showed I was going to get swamped, and I won in a landslide. They were fake polls because polls are tough. You know, when you get a fake poll, I get them today. I saw one today that I'm at 40%. 40%. I'm not at 40%. I'm at much higher than that. I mean, I'd love to run against anybody. The real polls say you kill everybody. It wouldn't even be close. But you go through the fake polls, you go through the fake stories. And I said, you know, it was good because this is really a much more powerful term than I would have had if I had run, because it was just one of those things. There would be nothing to compare it to.
Well, quite honestly, my polls, And yes, they're fake and mean to me. And yes, my feelings are hurt because it's so unfair to me they lost a loved one. But what about me and my polls? Why would they do this to me? Do you think Donald Trump actually cares about these families? Do you think he cares that Americans lost their lives? I think the answer is painfully clear. He doesn't care at all. And that's why Carolyn Leavitt's meltdown, her tantrum, was so ridiculous. Leavitt went after failing CNN for not airing Trump's Angel Families event because it doesn't fit the left's narrative. She, as White House spokesperson, complained that CNN didn't broadcast Trump's Monday event honoring families whose loved ones were killed by undocumented immigrants, like 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley from Georgia, killed by a Venezuelan man. On Monday, Trump signed a proclamation designating February 22 as Angel Families Day, honoring 2 survivors and 62 people killed by undocumented individuals. According to the New York Post, Riley was killed on February 22, 2024. So Carolyn Leavitt claims the media didn't cover this because it doesn't fit their narrative for Donald Trump. Oh, he cares so deeply about honoring these families. How does he honor them? By stealing their stories and framing them in a way that allows Trump to continue a $100 billion operation, targeting Americans on the streets, profiling us racially, spending hundreds of billions not to keep us safe, but to build a standing army. Donald Trump doesn't know who Laken Riley was. He doesn't care. None of them care. They use these lives as props because it fits their narrative. The projection is insane. Of course, CNN, MSNBC, and every other major outlet that didn't cover it or kicked Trump off their shows saying we don't want this, they were right to do so. Why would anyone want to watch the President of the United States lie about the 2020 election, ramble incoherently, interrupt a story that went nowhere, talk about Zohran Mamdani shoveling snow to tell a girl her eye looks weird, and then wander off like the bizarre, crazy man he is? There is no narrative. There is no story. Crime by undocumented people in this country is disproportionately lower than that of native-born Americans. This isn't even remotely comparable. Yet the right keeps pushing this narrative while executing people on the streets. And as I've said before, it's maddening to think there should have been protests or school strikes after Laken Riley. You've heard Pam Bondi. Between the yelling and screaming and her shrill DOJ commentary, what about Laken Riley? Why isn't anyone talking about her? Her murderer was prosecuted and jailed. That was the response. What about the ICE agents who took the lives of 2 Americans in Minneapolis? It looks like nothing will happen. That's why we're angry, because justice is being denied. Their lives were taken. This isn't a political game. It's a real fear that more ICE agents could kick down our doors, drag us from our cars, or kill us on the street while we try to live our lives. By the way, Alex Presley protected a woman. Yet the people claiming this is about protecting life literally targeted the life of someone who acted to protect others. That is not their goal. I reject that argument completely. And I'm not the only one. A former ICE agent resigned to go to Congress to expose the illegal actions currently happening in the agency.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, Representative Garcia, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Schwank. I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution when I joined ICE on August 1st, 2021, as an Assistant Chief Counsel. I followed that oath for 4.5 years, working side by side with ICE officers. And I followed it when I resigned on February 13th, 2026, a little over a week ago, so that I could speak to you today. I am here because I am duty-bound to report the legally required training program at the ICE Academy is deficient, defective, and broken. 5 months ago, I was asked to teach the law to new cadets at the ICE Academy in Glencoe, Georgia, where ICE is training its new, inexperienced recruits. those without law enforcement training, I volunteered to take on this assignment based on my experience in law enforcement oversight, including at the state and local level prior to my work with ICE. On my first day, I received secretive orders to teach new cadets to violate the Constitution by entering homes without a judicial warrant. For the last 5 months, I watched ICE dismantle the training program, cutting 240 hours of vital classes from a 584-hour program. Classes that teach the Constitution, our legal system, firearms training, the use of force, lawful arrests, proper detention, and the limits of officers' authority. For example, they ceased all of the legal instructions regarding use of force. This means that cadets are not taught what it means to be objectively reasonable, the very standard which the law requires them to meet when deciding whether or not to use deadly force. Our jobs as instructors are to teach them so well that they can make split-second decisions about what they can and cannot do in life or death situations. Yet, in the name of churning out an endless stream of officers, DHS leadership has dismantled the academic and practical tests that we need to know if cadets can safely and lawfully perform their job. All to satisfy an administration demanding they train thousands of new officers before the end of the year. DHS told the public that new cadets receive all the training they need to perform their duties, that no critical material or standards have been cut.
These people are thugs, and I think it's crucial to make it crystal clear they don't care about us. And I don't want to pretend otherwise. Body cameras or a little extra funding won't change the fundamental problem with ICE, that it's basically Donald Trump's Frankenstein's monster. It's a physical manifestation of the most bigoted, angry, and racist parts of him. The parts of Trump that want to violently lash out, that want to physically oppress anyone he sees as an enemy of the state. That's what ICE is about. That's their mission. And no Democrat in good conscience should participate in any conversation pretending these are just people trying to do their jobs. The job, as dictated by Trump, is follow his orders, not the Constitution. Don't keep anyone safe. Create chaos. Harm Americans. That's it. And that's exactly what we're going to address in this show. If you want to support this, as always, hit the subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep fighting, everyone. Don't let them silence you. Until next time, we'll see you.